Evening everybody, and welcome to the Scam Pro Audio webcast here on a Wednesday. Strange, usually we're on Thursday, we started doing it on Tuesday, and now we picked a Wednesday. Why would we do that to you? Well, tonight we have something very, very special indeed. We have a UK exclusive. We have an old friend of Scan's here, Mr. Lee Boylan from Presonus, and he's brought a new friend of Scan's. Some of you may recognize him from the Presonus expert site, and some of you may actually recognize him as Pro Tools expert site. He's got Mr. Russ Hughes with him. But whatever, they're going to be talking about something really very special, something we've talked about in the past, which is Studio One, but this is version 3. It's coming to you very quickly.
Hey guys, Lee here from Presonus, and thank you all for tuning in and taking the time to share our very important news and exciting news that we have. I'm sure you all have heard by now, Studio One version 3 is here. We are so excited. The guys at Presonus, our developers, have worked so hard on this software and we're so proud of it. Everybody loves it. There's so many great features. So with me, I've got Russ Hughes, as was described. I'm sure you know Russ. Most of you would know Russ from ProToolsExpert.com.
Correct. One of the sites.
But now also StudioOneExpert.com.
We have 5 sites. We have Pro Tools Expert, Logic Pro Expert, Ableton Live Expert, Reason Expert, and about 6 weeks ago we started Studio One Expert. It's our fastest growing site we've ever had.
Okay.
It's gone through the roof. Partly probably because of anticipation of this, but we're shocked by the community already out there, and we were surprised because you've already done a great job of building community at Presonus.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see. Anyway, it's been great. It's great to be here.
Well,
tonight, running between studios.
Yes, exactly. Just ran in the door and straight with a microphone. But it's great to have you here because you obviously have so much experience with different DAWs. So, how did you hear about Studio One? And why? Why do you like it?
I can't remember actually somebody asked me this question actually recently. Said, is this the story? I've heard stories of how you got to Studio One. Because I ran an article, I don't know if it made it to you, about why is a Pro Tools evangelist.
Yes, absolutely.
Studio One.
Yeah.
So that's the backstory is that in 2008 we started Pro Tools Expert, and when you start something and you're a kind of personality, then people think Pro Tools Expert must be Russ, but there's actually a team behind it. Yeah. And there's a guy called Mike Thornton that now he's the editor on a day-to-day basis with James Ivey, his deputy editor. So there's a team on that. Okay. And so I've kind of taken a role that's kind of overseeing all the sites, but. Oddly enough, about a year ago, somebody, I think, just said, try out Studio One, and I started using it, and I just, for music production, I think Studio One version 2, I thought was brilliant, but when 3 came along, this really is, I'm not going to use any of the cliches people use out there. Well, you know,
we're going to have
game change and all those things. That should only be used if you take a Monopoly back. But no, I think this is...
well, we're going to have some fun.
We're going to have some fun. We're going to show them some of our stuff, aren't we, that we're getting into.
We'll
some
delve
of the things
into.
We love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And answer any questions. I think there's questions coming in tonight, aren't there?
Oh,
through the forums. And
there's quite a lot of people on, yeah.
So,
well, what about the sound of Studio One? Did you notice a very noticeable difference?
It's funny, people have this discussion.
Yeah, because I think DAWs have a sound.
Do you?
And for me, it feels so much better than what I've used before, sound-wise.
I don't buy into that, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great that we're not agreeing already this early on in the show.
I spoke to one of the developers who also said it can't be possible.
It isn't possible.
But I've spoke to 100 people who said that's what you...
What we should really do is a blind test and put them all out there. Do the same track done in Pro Tools, Logic. And to be honest, the first thing I want to say tonight is, although we're on this webcast about Studio One, is the best story is the one that suits you. Yeah. And for me, for music production, and say I've got a Pro Tools background as well, 15 years using Pro Tools, they still own the post market. Yeah. But for music production, this is the one.
Well, we'll try and change
sound or
that
no sound or no sound. Let's say I don't notice a difference in sound between using this and Pro Tools. Okay. And that's probably a good endorsement straight away.
Okay, well, I'm going to start off and maybe talk about a few of the features first, and then you can jump in and we'll just...
This is one you made earlier.
This is one I definitely made earlier because it's quite simple, but I think it illustrates basically how we can do Studio One. The first thing with the new version 3 is that basically there's a new graphics engine. So straight away, if you see it on screen there, I don't know, You can see on screen. Actually, that's
mine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
That's what. His is
I've got lots
looking.
of colours. Nice colours.
Yeah.
So you can see straight away it's a darker, sharper looking interface. You've got colour channels, strips, and lots of colours, and you can arrange stuff. If you've used version 2, it still has the same workflow. So you're not going to start with version 3 and get lost with different ways to do stuff. It's still the same workflow. You've still got your drag and drop. It's still a single window interface. So everything's simple in front of you, but it's a nicer, sharper looking image. It's you can also adjust the colours in the background.
Can we switch to mine? Because I want to show that's a good point you're going to make straight away.
Yeah.
We flip to mine straight away. You'll see that's my version.
Yeah, and you did that yourself.
I did that myself.
Yeah.
It didn't take long. You can pimp it how you like. And actually I've made some versions. So if you come in here very quickly, well, this is one of the things we'll show you straight away.
Yep.
Into preferences, I'm going to general, and we go to appearance. So if we shift the hue up, we can make it different colours and stuff. At the top there. Now my saturation's down, so if I push my saturation back up again and then start moving this slider, I can have a blue one if I want to go back to a blue one from the old days and stuff, or whatever one you want.
I mean, if you like the old version, you can get it to look the exact same, basically.
I didn't actually. Yeah, no, but interesting enough, because I come from a Pro Tools background, we've always had a light kind of edit window, and so I've got mine light, as you can see there, so you can see the grid much more easily.
Yes,
I find that a bit dark, actually, to be frank with you, but you might like that. So but I've got one called Logic. There's my Logic setting.
Okay, yeah.
And my Pro Tools setting, and then I've got a default setting.
Okay.
So straight away, that is a really cool feature.
Well, there you go. So you're not stuck to this new look, but for a lot of people, we've done some research, and this seems to be the way that people prefer to view, but obviously not everybody. So again, you can see on Russ's there your different
You flip between those two, Tom, Mr.
Yeah.
The difference straight away. It looks like two different doors, doesn't it?
Yeah. Just our preferences show in what's on the screen.
We painted our doors differently.
But there's a whole new graphics engine here. This has now got 4 times the resolution available for high DPI monitors for use with Windows, which is very similar to Retina display for the MacBook. So, on
a 4K monitor, it will look...
Exactly, it will look...
If ever you could say that about a DAW.
Well, you said it, not me, but I agree.
Horses for horses.
So basically, it's a new look, but the same workflow. If you used V2 before, you'll be fine with V3. You've just got some extra features now that I'm going to dip into. So I think probably both of our favourite new feature is the Arrange.
Love Arranger.
The new Arranger.
It's just taking me back to the early days. Do you remember C-Lab? I started.
Well, I don't.
Actually, you're probably doing it. When I was a lad,
right.
C-Lab was was actually the original product that became Logic.
Okay.
So C-Lab creator and notator then became eMagic. Then Apple bought it and turned it into Logic.
eMagic is where I jumped in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Back in the day, way back.
Yeah.
48, mate. One of the cool features was this ability just to drag and drop stuff and very quickly arrange songs. So you showed it earlier in the arrange. You can actually not only have we got it across the timeline.
Yeah, I'll show you.
So on the left hand side,
across the top here. So I've got a very basic song, and if you notice, I've already written these sections in at the top. You'll see it says intro, different versions. When I open this arranger page, select it and hit the information track. Basically on the left hand side, now what Russ is talking about, I can jump around different sections just by clicking. And it's so snappy. Straight away when I click it, it will let me jump to different sections of the song.
So move the chorus though. This is the cool bit.
So if I think, okay, I want another chorus, that sounded really good. Just literally click it, drag, and now I've got 2 choruses.
But why don't you put the chorus after the intro instead, which is so cool.
Okay, well, I'll try and do that. There you go.
Just in there.
Get it right.
There we go. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can just totally chop and change your whole song. Well, you can undo all of that, but it's so easy to experiment. You can even select, say, this yellow section, just hit D, and I can 3 clicks. I've got or 4 clicks. I've got 4 different versions.
You got a club hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Just no. Obviously, we haven't mentioned Scratchpad yet.
Exactly.
Basically, you can have as many songs as you like in the same song. So if you think, I want to try a guitar solo on that, or I want to take the vocals and do a different version of the vocals, you can create version after version after version in this. If you just open that, so we have a split screen window there.
We have this tab up here. It's called Scratchpad, and what it opens is basically another arrange page.
And we can start building a new song in there. And so many versions of a song.
Yeah, you can't mess up. Basically, you can take. Let me see this chorus, for example. Drag it in here. Oh, I didn't want to totally take it.
You didn't press Alt.
Yep.
That was the trick. Can you back?
Yep.
It's as good as that. It's as easy as that.
Yeah.
There we go.
No. That's what I did do.
Right mouse click it. That's even the cooler thing. Move to scratch pad.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Copy to new. And away we go. It's thinking about it.
And away we don't go.
We might have crashed your computer doing that.
Yeah, well, okay. I think we're a bit quick for it. Well, have you got one set up?
Go on to mine. I've got one set up here. To jump over to mine, one we made earlier. And again, if you can see on my screen now, let me lose the browse window. Here on this side, on the left-hand screen, is one version. And then here on the right-hand side is the second version, which I've created. And I can just jump back and forth. Let me just turn that down before I blow the speakers. Come here again. And that's two different versions. Now here's a really cool feature we found out when we were playing around with this. You realise you could have two separate mixes. You could have exactly the same song there and have different automation, because the automation follows too.
Yeah, the effects, everything.
Basically scened mixes. So if you're doing a radio mix, you don't have to create a copy of this file. You can come over here, and again with the radio edit, it's probably a 3:30. I think that's the number they work with in radio. And you can have a single mix, an album mix, a radio mix, different mixes, different arrangements, all in the same song.
Yeah, it's like a double arrangement.
To be honest, that'd do it for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm done.
Like, you remember years ago when you'd be working on a song and you'd have these ideas and you'd get your scissors and you'd stack a load of stuff on the other
Down
end.
The back.
Yeah.
I was talking to my colleague Mike about this today. I never, actually in video I've done it, but I've never moved audio to the other end of a track to mess around. I copy files and start all over again, which is probably really old school. It's like copying a tape. But this feature alone makes this a killer
it's
music production app. Doesn't it?
It makes it like super creative, and you don't have to worry that you're going to basically mess up your composition. But I think you're going to see that now as we go through the different features with version 3.
If I bring that window back on again while we've got my screen up, and say as well, if you look then to there, you see I've got radio edit, I've got album version, I've got guitar solo, and I can just jump between them and have these different versions working. It's really, really cool. Let's go back to you now.
Yeah. What I was going to say is a lot of the new features are they help with composition and for music writing. So it's not just...
Can we go back to his screen, Tom? Is that possible?
It's not just technical tools that's been improved here. So let me see where we go. New instruments. So there's a new instrument engine that's been created basically for version 3. And it's a new way of making virtual instruments with modules. So we've introduced 2 new instruments, and the first one is Mai Tai, which is a polyphonic analog modeling synth that sounds unbelievable. Basically, it sounds so analog, and it sounds so fat. I've got one track here. I'll just solo and let you have a listen. For basses and for pads, it just sounds really, really nice. So you can see we've got 2 oscillators, a filter, we have 2 LFOs, noise generator, 3 envelopes. So I mean, it's there's a lot of sculpting that you can do to make things that you want. There's a ton of presets as well with this that a lot of the guys have put together that are really nice, really nice vibe off them as well. Down on the bottom as well, so directly built into your synth, you've got effects A and B. Some modulation, delay, reverb. Effects B, something that you seem to really like, is the gate.
I love gating. Yeah. Just to add some interest to a pad sound, or to use it like a pumper. You can do that.
Did you have something there lined up?
I'll have something in a second. While you've still got your screen up, there's a couple of things that people probably won't go for straight away, but they are killer features in this synth. One of them is drive. The other one's punch. Just try pushing the punch and the drive upon a amazing. Okay. The other one is down here on the right, the quality. There's an 80s synth mode. Absolutely. It can sound really... I don't know if I can swear on this show. I'm not going to swear, because this is a family show. But it sounds fantastic. It sounds like an 80s synth.
Well, I've put a bit of a gate... I've changed the gate there, so you'll hear straight away the difference that made. And then to experiment with your punch, which I don't know, it feels kind of like a compression type of...
Yeah, the punch is like a transient processor.
There you go, you can hear it.
Try the drive as well, it just can add some real guts to a sound.
I actually like...
We can go 80s on it now. Let's go for broke. Top one.
There you go.
Hear that sound?
With some noise. So you can hear it's really warm, really analog sound. It's and then in a track, it doesn't get lost. It's so second favorite feature for me. This sounds unbelievable. So also we have Presonus XT, which is our new sampler. And again,
super fab.
Yeah.
Can I mention while you get that up?
Yeah.
These are all built on a brand new sound engine that they've created. This is just what they say is the start. It's a brand new engine that's going to be driving all this. And the great thing about the engine, they say, is the engine is the same, whether it's using a sample to create the sound or whether it's using an oscillator to create the sound. So the same core engine drives these things.
Yeah.
Present straight away. If you got like me, I've got terabytes of libraries. This will load Contact. Protected.
Exactly. Yeah.
It will load Giga. It will load sound font. XSs. So if you're a Logic guy, you can load your ESX library. But the great cool feature as well is it's the only sampler outside of Bitwig that uses this new universal sampler format, which means that this will load Bitwig sound libraries as well.
Yes.
And they're trying to push this whole... I like anything that's universal. I don't like things that are locked down.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? If there's a plugin format that isn't universal, then it drives you crazy. So a sample library format that's universal, that's got to be a good thing.
It's quite unique, yeah. Streaming as well, so you can like really bring big files in, big samples.
You can't watch TV programs on it though, so the disc streaming isn't that good.
This middle thing looks a bit like a TV, maybe, you know. And scripting as well, so you can pull in lots of parameters from.
I can show you that on one of mine if you want.
Yeah.
I'll just get a bass sound up. Give me 1 second. I will get in a contemporary bass and load that up. Full finger.
So the previous version had Presence. This is called Presonus XT.
So here's a bass sound. Let's go down an octave. If you look down here now, anything that's marked red changes the articulation. So we've got scripting for articulations. So
yeah, exactly.
So if you've got an 88-note keyboard, so this is a tiny one we're using here today. And then I think we've got harmonics. This stops.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
I've heard one of the guys is brilliant with a nylon guitar version.
Oh, is that?
He's got like harmonics and he's got the whole thing going.
Yeah, I spent yesterday some time programming a bass part
Yeah.
using all the articulations.
Yeah.
And it makes a heck of a
Yeah,
difference.
it
really is cool. These libraries ships with 15 gigabytes, doesn't it? The
exactly,
Pro version.
the Pro version, 15 gig, and it's like they're all really high quality samples. They're stuff you'd use, you know. They're really cool.
So there's a shed full of content in there. If you look at that, I think are we still on my screen? Yeah, I'm gonna load an organ in for a little while because we're going to talk about some new plugins in a while. But you get back to your cool stuff.
Okay, so that's new instruments, but we've got a new thing called multi-instruments. So this is getting back to composition and coming up with unique sounds. Nowadays, there's so many DAWs with samples and plug-in instruments that we're starting to get used to the sound of them, and things are starting to sound not too unique. With this, we're trying to give you the ability to combine your instruments to create your own sounds and sculpt your own kind of...
Probably my second favourite feature is this.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is. Both the Arranger feature and this feature we're going to talk about now is a bit vintage, not in the sense that they've made like a plugin that looks like an old vintage plugin.
It's modular idea.
But it's that whole vintage way. When I first got into synths, we all had our A-frame, didn't we? It had a DX7 on it.
Yeah.
It had a Juno 16. It had a Jupiter 8. And you'd MIDI them all together and get the sounds. And you can do that now in this in a moment.
Absolutely.
Are you showing this or am I showing this?
I'm going to drag over just to show real quick.
Brilliant.
That to set up a multi-instrument, there's two ways. We can go into multi-instrument at the top and we can open basically a blank multi-instrument. So within here we can drag in numerous different plugins, different instruments to blend what we want. But the simplest way, I think, is to use an already open synth. So I've got kind of a pad sound going here. And if I drag in, let's say, a Mai Tai on top of this, it now asks me, do I want to replace my old sound or do I want to combine this with my old sound? So you'll see my multi-instrument pops up, and now I've got Presence and Mai Tai. So when we click each, we see we've got individual controls for each. So now we can really have control over blending the two sounds. I mean, this is only 2. I can add in 3, 4, 5. I can add effects in on this and everything. So, for example,
can split the keyboard at the bottom here. That's great. That's just by dragging that thing around.
Exactly, just a drag there.
Have one synth on the top hand, one on the bottom.
Your bass on your left, and your.
Do you know what I mean? This feels so 80s, doesn't it?
That's great.
It's so retro. It's fantastic.
Perfect. It's needed.
It's just utterly awesome.
So if I'll just give you an example of what's going on here.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to say I built a beautiful one using. I'm using a piano sample from the new sampler from Presonus XT.
Okay.
I've got Omnisphere.
Oh, wow.
doing a string pad, and then I've got a Contact playing French horns, and it just sounds absolutely killer.
Have you got it?
I haven't got it on here. It's on my trash can microphone. But it shouldn't be on there because it doesn't need to be trash canned.
But yeah, so just to show that it was that simple. Now that sounds pretty gross, but I can click on Mai Tai and I can just edit through my sounds. Actually, there's a really nice string sound in here. Exactly, it's so good.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Let's try that.
I'm not sure who Keith is, but
yeah, thank you, Keith.
He knows the strings. Sorry, guys.
Lovely.
So you get the point. You can layer these up and do a proper job with effects, with compression, splitters, all that type of thing. But multi-instruments, they're your own individual sounds, your own original sounds and textures. So this is, I don't know, we keep saying this is our favorite feature. I think we'll have to stop at some stage.
Probably because I don't know. I mentioned this on another video I've done with you guys, which is that when I got the spec sheet through for this product, 14 pages of feature changes. I think some other door manufacturers could take a leaf out of Presonus's book about what an update really consists of.
Yes.
It's 14 pages.
Yeah.
It's awesome. There's just so many. Is it over 200 new features, I think?
Yeah.
It's huge.
I visited the guys developing, and they were just sitting at desks, just working so frantically. You know, they've worked so hard on this, and every detail has been taken into consideration. So, node effects.
Should we talk about those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something that people have had in other doors for a long time. So I've got a piano here, and what I'm going to do is start showing you note effects on those.
So I should mention in version 2, this is extended note effects.
Yeah, this is, so for example, we have an arpeggiator now. Get one in, and that can either be notes.
Sorry, external effects I set up.
Set that octave up. So that's an arpeggiator, and it can either be an arpeggiator in the conventional sense, or it can be chords. And there's an up, or down, or up and down, or down and up, as I say, or chords. And then some really nice features. So there's hold it was doing there. And some really nice presets already in here that if you go through them, just that they've put in from factory, but I'm sure people will get into it. So that's just playing random notes now. So we go back to chords now. There's a velocity feature as well, which is nice. So let's go through and find a different one. Let's try that. Head Nicker, I think, is a good one. So let's play that.
Great, and you can hear the sample, so it's a really nice piano sound as well. Like, it actually sounds like somebody.
And of course,
really
there's a range in timing, octave range as well. That piano sounds beautiful at the top.
It really does.
Length as well.
while you're showing chords, can you pull up the chorder?
Pull up the chorder now?
Yeah.
Let's just lose the arpeggiator of that for a second.
This is something that makes my life very easy because I can't get my left hand to work when I play piano. So
Can you not?
Yeah. So this
is
fixes
chorder,
that.
which allows you to, for those who aren't big on chords, so I'm just playing one finger
yeah,
there.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can set up your own versions of your
Yeah,
chords.
learning it is very simple. Basically, you can teach it to learn what you're playing. You go into learn mode.
Yeah.
You play the chord. You assign it to a note, and then away you go.
Yeah.
And as I say, there's already some nice
So
stuff in there.
that one key will always be that chord. Very E17.
How about that?
It's
Actually,
so
but
easy.
joking about also cool, and I've seen this on another instrument. If you're in kind of like Launchpad or Machine,
Yeah.
then you could assign the pads to be chords on Machine.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So
2 or 3
live,
blocks,
you could be playing chords.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I nearly did a Mud song. Was it Mud that did?
It was
Friend to Lean on Me. Lean
that was
on Me. Who did
you
Lean
just
on
did,
Me?
yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm sure somebody on the chat room could tell us who did Lean on Me. But the chords are in there for it. How easy is that? Fantastic. So that's the chorder. Then there's an input filter, which you are right, on the old version, on Studio 2 version 2, we call it the old version already, don't we? It doesn't take long to do that. So there's the input filter, which is kind of a modification of the original one.
Yeah.
And that allows you to do some quite cool input filtering of all sorts of stuff, set key ranges and stuff like that, velocities, minimum velocity, maximum velocity.
Mm-hmm.
That could be very cool. There's that. And then finally, there is also a repeater, which is like a MIDI echo unit. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool on synths. And of course, you could do things like you could drop that down. You can. I think there's already some. So there's one. I'm doing some kind of avant-garde jazz for us now.
Yeah, go for it.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
but you could sit there.
And you could pitch it
all
and
day
stuff and things
get
like that.
that
You
work,
could do
yeah.
some really wild stuff. So I'm going to start writing horror
Interesting.
movie music.
Interesting.
Over to you. Enough of my.
Oh, no, that's cool. That's cool. So
So they're very cool for
and all
for
drag and
creation.
drop, drag and drop.
Drag and drop.
And you can save your presets. So if you spend an hour setting up a particular pattern,
Yeah,
you can
there's
save that.
presets like any other plugin. The
Yeah.
presets are just drag and drop. Drag it out, drag it back
Yeah,
in if you need
and it's
it.
yours forever.
It's yours forever.
Yeah. Actually, that's the same with the multi-instrument that we just did. So if you add like 5 or 6 synths together or whatever, you can save that as one new instrument.
Cool.
Played over one keyboard. So
Brilliant.
okay. Extended effects chains. That's something that I mixed my words up on the last one. So we've had effects chains previously where you can set up in serial, your reverb or your compressor or whatever you need. But now we have extended effects chains.
This might be my favourite feature too.
Could be mine as well, but anyway. But if you go to each channel, you'll see we now have a channel editor. So I've got a basic drum beat on this guy. I should be getting audio on me. Okay, I'll use this percussion thing. Okay, so if I open the channel editor for this percussion, we'll see that there's a macro panel here, which I'll show you in 2 minutes ago what we can use that for. But this is our extended effects. So what we can do here is we can add effects all together, but not only in serial. We can so let me see. I'll go to
I've
my
got
effects.
one set if you want to just quickly, while you're getting one set up.
Yeah,
If you just jump to my screen quickly. I
Yeah.
can talk us through that. So what I've got on my screen now is I can create very quickly multi-band effects, and also I can include pipeline in this. I don't know if the users know about pipeline. Pipeline is one of
Yeah.
the most elegant and simple ways of adding hardware into
Yeah.
into Studio One. It
Around
figures
the
out the
world, yeah.
latency and all sorts of stuff. But what's cool about this now, so I can take compressor and drag it in, then I can get a splitter and drag it into the chain now. Then I can get a second compressor and drag that in, as you can see. And what we can do now, the splitter, we can choose channel split, we can choose frequency split, So very quickly, we can create some really cool things. And we can as well. So I can take that split now. I can go there. I want to put a split there. And I want a compressor working on the top end.
Well, you can change this. See this number 2? You can change that to up to 5 splits.
Yeah.
So now what you could do is you could get your favorite analog plug-in kind of tube compressor or your vintage compressor, and you could make multi-band compression.
Here's a very interesting thing. I love using Pultecs on the bottom end for bass.
There you go, exactly.
Yeah, but actually I really love using the Mag EQ4, which is one of my favourite for top end. It's got this thing called the Air Band. So what I can build now is an EQ unit using this method.
That has never existed before.
Which never existed before, which is a Pultec bottom end and a Mag EQ4 on the top end. And the sky's the limit. You can
use your software and you can use your hardware.
Exactly.
So you can software on the low end if you like, and your hardware equipment on the high end with the pipeline plugins.
So I'm a real gear freak when it comes to full of gear, and with Pipeline I can basically choose. I can do an A/B test like it's a plug-in between my 1176 compressor and my DBX compressor, and just switch between them as if I'm trying to
just on your screen.
On my screen, it's just nuts. Yeah. So you're doing one here now.
Well, it's just what you were doing. It's very same thing. I've got my split. I put. You can see I've got reverb there, and let's put say some distortion. Just make some noise.
Put the bit crusher on that for
like
me.
Big
put
red,
some red light.
Big, huge red thing. I like. So when I click on the splitter, it's running normal, but I can split it in 2. That's my left channel.
Oh, you're channel splitting it. You're getting all freaky with this, aren't you?
So, but you can probably hear the amount of width that comes out then. You can really dial in some different EQs from left and right, different compressors, and then you can come back and you can, you could stick some compression then over the whole output again, just to give an overall compression to tie your whole sound together. But again, the main point here is you're able to craft your own sounds that don't sound like anybody else with your effects, with your virtual instruments. So you can really get your own unique sound, and nobody can pick where you're getting your sounds from, basically. So
we're talking creativity here, aren't we? There's so many things built into Studio One version 3, which mean you can have your own unique sounds.
Absolutely.
And I think in the modern age, one of the things I've written about this a few times. I'm not a massive fan of presets. I think they make us lazy. And anything that can encourage you to have your own unique sound, which in a sense, if you're serious about music production, that's what's going to get you noticed.
Yeah,
when people listen to a track and think, how did he get that bass sound? Or how did she get that reverb sound? That's what people are looking for.
Exactly.
And you can do this in Studio One.
You could do it more with hardware before. You could combine things, go in and go out of stuff. Now it's so easy to do here, and it's drag and drop as well. Everything's just laid out in front of you. It's getting just too easy. So. Okay, so then I suppose the next big thing that we've changed is the browser section on the right.
Another thing I love, and actually one of the things that used to drive me crazy, Mike, the editor of Pro Tools Expert, will know this, is that in Pro Tools there's a thing called the workspace, which has driven me crazy because it's supposed to be the way that you find loops and stuff like that. Now, if we go over to my screen now for a second, you see that this browser now is you're able to sort straight away in a really cool way, but the search is really cool because not only can you do the word search like you normally would, but if you hit this tag window here, straight away you can break down very quickly. You say, I want a bass sound, I want it to be a pop bass, and I want it to be electronic. And straight away it's giving me all those in tagged like that.
Exactly, and it will list of things that just suit what you need.
Say what loop, I want all the loops, so I'm not messing around playing one shot. That drives me crazy. When you're trying to find a drum loop.
Yeah.
And I know if people watching this have done that, you're trying to find a drum loop and you find all these one shots and you think, no, just give me the loops. Yeah. So you can say, I just want a loop.
And what else is cool with this, when you go into, are you in loops? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in loops.
When the preview is at the bottom there?
Yeah.
If you can actually select the tempo track. So it will play the loop in the speed of your arrange page. So you can...
Yeah, so you can play...
You can
that's
hear
the original... That's it then BPM'd up, which isn't that different actually, but...
But in some ways you listen to something and then when you drag it in, it just doesn't suit in the wrong tempo. So you can hear it in context by clicking that little button, basically.
Correct. And I think actually they're okay, but they're electronic sounds. So let's lose electronic and let's try something else. So I'm now into all sorts of basses.
Yeah.
and I want an EDM based sound instead. There's none of those. Seems there's no love for EDM tonight on your browser.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. So one other obvious thing that you will have noticed as we work here, there are large thumbnail pictures beside each of your virtual instruments or your effects. So, I think this is brilliant. Straight away, I see it and I drag it on. I don't have to look at little lists.
Should we share them a little tip that they probably won't read the manual very quickly?
Yeah,
this is a top tip from us tonight. So if you come over to my screen a second, you'll see I have Addictive Drums here. And actually you can see in the browser as well that it is the Addictive Drums icon there.
Thumbnail, yeah.
Now, if you first load up Studio One version 3 with all your third-party plugins, it's just going to be a list of names. So as I say, what you do is when you open a plugin, you come here where it's got the list of stuff at the top here where it says Addictive Drums. Drop down on that and at the bottom it says Update Plugin Thumbnail. That will create a thumbnail based upon what it looks like at the moment you're looking at it. So if I hit that again now, we'll have a different thumbnail showing, as you can see there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Second tip I'm going to tell you about organization. Because I've got the entire UAD library. Okay. And I've also got the entire Waves library. You can imagine how many plugins they are.
It's going to take you a while.
I'm actually using the visual icons to identify my favorites.
Yeah.
Use as often, they're just the word type.
Yeah, you leave them in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the ones I use a lot, such as the Manly Mew, or in 1176 or the SSL G series, I just make those the visuals, and straight away I've got a visual indication of I can grab them very quickly.
But the other thing is, it's not a big long-winded process to go and put these thumbnails on your third-party plugins. You drag it on, click it, and I think it's called convert, or what's it called, transfer to thumbnail. It's just one click of a button. And
it's one click. I'm trying to find one here that I haven't actually done, but I did it doesn't take long. In fact, there's PG8X. It's a freeware plugin, I think. Let's just go in there, and we'll just replace that one in there. So there it is. At the moment, you can see it's just the name. So I go in here again, and I go zoom, update plugin thumbnail. There it is. There, boom, job done in the browser.
Yeah. So I think we might have covered quite a lot there. Is there any other?
I'm guessing people watching this think we like it.
Possibly, are quite fun. Is there any maybe questions that we should do?
Do you have any questions?
We're trying we're trying to stick to the new features because we know there's tons.
I did want to show them my banjo track, but obviously you're not letting me do it.
It's up to you. But we're trying because there's so many features in Studio One in general that we could go into lots of different things. There's layer recording, there's time stretching, all these great things.
I'm on a green screen here. I wish I could do the weather. So here, you can see there's a cold front moving in.
We have got a few questions that
have come
in already. Firstly, what does the undo function do? Is it any changes to it? Does it do mixer undo? Is there any plugin settings that undo? Have you had a good play with it enough to actually know that?
I played with it a bit. It still doesn't undo the mixer. But if you remember earlier, we were talking about the scratch pad, and the great thing about the scratch pad now is that you can go and work on a different mix in the scratch pad than the original mix, and you effectively have a recall of the mix that you don't want to mess up.
You're doing less undo.
So using scratch pad, you can go through and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So generally the undo is still to do with editing functions rather than mixing functions, as far as I've understood so far, using it for about the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, next one up. Does it allow multiple drag and drop onto back at a time?
Great thing. That's
Absolutely,
a sneaky feature. If you highlight a number of tracks, let's say you want to put a compressor, or let's say you want to use something like we might need to mention Stephen Slate actually at this point. But if you want to add a Stephen Slate plugin on every channel or on a number of channels, just like your drum channels, what you have to do is basically simply highlight the channels you want them on, drag and drop on any of those highlighted channels, and it adds a plugin onto every channel. Very cool feature. That works with inserts, but not with post sends.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Should we mention Scott? We were just going to mention Slate very quickly.
Absolutely. This was news to me an hour ago. So
Stephen Slate's announced that the Raven now supports multi-touch and everything. Watch the video on the Presonus site.
Can we show you on that subject? If you just look at my screen there, we have a cool new feature, and this seems quite simple, but you can stretch your faders to the full size of your screen. So this is supported fully for touchscre. So now you can.
We haven't mentioned that.
No, we haven't.
Free iPad app will be coming with the. It's not out today, but it's going to be a free app, and I've got a preview version of it. that is for
It's the
Studio
remote
One
control.
Professional. It's
Yeah.
basically a remote control, but it won't only work on the iPad, it's going to work on Windows 8, and it will also work with a third-party application on Macs if you've got a touch screen, so Mac OS X natively.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm almost certain it controls the XY parameters.
It controls the
macro.
XY, it also controls the whole of the mixer, but it also has a shed load of macros which you can program yourself. So if you want to do like split to pitch in MIDI, or if you want to do create me 5 tracks of drums, you can do all that kind of really cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Can I just show the macro panel real quick? Because I forgot to show that we've
I
got...
thought we were going to buy something from a supermarket. You mean a macro like that, don't you?
Well, okay.
Sorry. British
I,
joke.
I think there's a very small percentage of the British population who might actually know
What macro is. I'll shut up telling jokes then. Yeah, I'm here all night. While he's looking at you, want to talk about that?
I'll move on to XY swiftly. But basically, we have this drop-down XY, which will be controllable from your touchscreen. And also, I'm nearly certain it's on the remote for the iPad.
It's on the remote.
Yeah,
it is on the remote. Yeah, definitely
so
on the remote.
that's amazing to have that type of control. These macro controls, basically, if you go in and select any parameter for any of the plugins on that channel editor, we can... Okay, it's already connected. I already have this done. So you can see I have the drive button connected. I just have to right-click it and assign it to knob number 1 on my macro panel. So now we'll see that's called drive, and that will just control the drive for that distortion. So now I can have different controls for different plugins on every different macro knob.
But actually, and alternatively, what you can also do, if you've got 3 synths, like say you've got a load of pads all stacked up, or a load of synth sounds stacked up, you could assign, let's say, knob 1 to the cutoff of all 3
all
synths.
of them. Yeah.
So you've got, and the great thing about this is the XY comes into its own with synths. So if you have like resonance and cutoff and drive and punch on that XY, you could do some wacky stuff.
Yeah, no, it's...
Next question.
Sorry, I jumped out of questions
Okay,
there.
going actually on the macro subject, does the macro program now have a macro recorder?
No.
No, I haven't heard of this.
No, let's just be clear. There's the macro window like this, and there's also the macros that this question's about. Macros are where you can set up, if you go to my screen in a sec, I'll just bring it up for a second for people to see. That will come up in a second. This is the macro where you can create actions like zoom, overview, and toggle and things like that, and normalize or whatever you want to do. You can set those up. At the moment, no, there's no screen record feature. Although there's some pretty good applications out there for both Mac and PC that let you do that anyway, but it's not built into Studio One version 3 right now.
But obviously, you can click any parameter here, and then this hand tool, we're getting into old features here, but this hand tool will let you...
That's another one of my favorite features of Studio One.
It'll let you open an automation window or channel for any of these macro, the XY or any of the knobs.
Let's be clear that the favourites in Studio One is like children.
Okay.
That all of them are your favourites.
Absolutely.
Let's be clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's be clear.
At least you tell them that.
At least
go
you
with
tell
that.
them
I'll
that.
go with
In fact, one of my friends said he didn't like any of his children. It was all equal. Anyway,
That's still fair.
that's still fair.
Yeah.
Next question, Tom.
Okay, next question. Can you use 2 multi-touch monitors side by side? In fact, what's the multi-screen?
That's a good idea. In fact, this is slightly worrying. When I spoke to the guys in Hamburg,
They had
you can
10 or
actually
something.
you can have multi-touch on multiple monitors. So, for example, you could have people in the studio controlling their own cue mixes and things like that, because it's just like it's bringing it over from the live gear.
Yeah.
So yes, you can have more than he said. You could have a producer mixing on the desk and the guy sat on the sofa behind him, both controlling the same mix. I don't think that's a good idea.
No,
That's
no,
just good.
that
See, imagine the whole.
sounds
Imagine everybody in the band having an iPad in front of them. I think the drums will be allowed. It's just a recipe for disaster, but it's possible if you want to do it. Yeah, it is possible.
terrible. Things could really change when the engineer goes to the toilet, couldn't they?
Yeah. As one engineer once said to me when I said, "What's that button?" He said, "That's the button that puts you in hospital." Question, Tom.
Let's have a look. How can you have different time signatures for different parts of the song?
I think that's been possible before, hasn't it? We've got tempo map.
I know we have a tempo
map.
track.
I'd have to check that. That's not something I have an answer to. I can't give you a definitive answer.
Me
Can you,
either
Mr.
on that
product
one. No,
specialist?
absolutely not.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. But maybe we can take down some of these questions and we'll answer on your link. To
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Give you some
if that's
offline
cool.
answers when we've done our research.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. This is from Viper TBA.
Wow.
Is there
Does that
a way-
mean he's going to be a Viper at some point? To be agreed, to be announced.
Is there a way to connect more than one item to a single knob for instance, like with the Reason Combinator, so one knob will affect multiple parameters.
Yes,
that's
we
the
just
point,
mentioned that.
yeah.
They just mentioned that earlier on. Yes, basically those knobs in the controllers, you could have a knob controlling 30 different factors within that.
So
situation.
to clarify how you do that, you hold shift and you select the knobs you want.
Yeah.
And then you right click.
Yeah.
And you assign it to that knob.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, right, Mike Outlander 1. Any changes to the mastering suite?
Actually, there aren't changes to the mastering
Nothing.
suite at the moment, not that I know of.
Nothing I've heard of, obviously.
Not in the project section. That's
trying to
another
have a look.
offline moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just having a look. I don't think there's anything major that I've
What we
heard
didn't
of.
mention is there's 2 new plugins. There's one called
Rotor.
Rotor, which is awesome. Use it on an organ sound. It's just like having a Leslie cabinet, and it's very, very. And there's Bit Crusher.
Yeah.
So you can really mash up the sounds as well. You can make stuff 16-bit, 24-bit. That's not a bit rate converter. That's to give it some old school sound and some noise and some distortion. So there's 2 new plugins built in as well that come as part of the suite.
And we're asking, has it got automation?
Yes, automation curves are now in it.
Whoa,
There's the simple answer to that. Automation curves, we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like using Illustrator.
lovely.
Yeah. You basically create a line, and there's a dot in the middle of the line,
Just
and then
drag it down.
You can drag it down or drag it up and change the shape of that
Yeah.
curve in the automation. Very nice. Long overdue.
Okay, is there global FX bypass?
No.
Pretty simple, that one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, yes, there is. It's the quit button.
Well, again, you're getting back to the macro controls. You can set up, some way that you could have all of your mutes or something on one macro button. So there is a way you can design it yourself, but there's no kind of standard setup.
Right. And can we set the range of one parameter on the macro feature? I mean, can I set a filter that only works 500 hertz to 1K?
Yes. So that's the cool thing is when you go into the macro editor, it's not only assigning the knob, it then gives it. You can then actually set ranges within that knob. So that's a great question and essential if you want to do that. So basically, you can set a range. So you can say, okay, it's only going to go from 100 up to 250, and that's the only range it will work within. Very useful.
Okay, and the last one that seems to have come in is the piano roll the same as in version 2.
Yes.
There's some MIDI changes as well, isn't there? The step editor now built in. I love step editor. I'm really old school 1980s. So you can record now in MIDI. Very nice. But the piano roll is the same as it has always been. I don't have a MIDI track up on here, so I can't actually share it.
Yeah, I've opened it up there. Yeah.
There's the piano roll.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, it works. It works perfectly. It's so easy to navigate. It's
Other thing to mention as well is that there's a new time stretch algorithm built into the Pro time stretch, which now, instead of being just 4 times, you can now do 20 times stretching of the audio.
Oh, back into the old Akai days of
Yeah.
everyone trying to sound like a jungle producer.
And there's also a global time stretch for your entire song that sounds amazingly inaudible once you don't get too silly, obviously, but you can adjust the tempo of your entire song.
Top tip of the night, though, you cannot, once you've opened something in Studio One 3 and saved it, reopen it in Studio One version 2. So you need to make sure you do save as with any stuff you want to go back to. The best piece of advice I can give you tonight is back up all your songs before you even open Studio One version 3. And talk to these guys. It might be a time to and then not ask me to say this. We did an article actually recently on Studio One Expert, 5 things to do before you go to Studio One version 3. Backup was one of them. Look at updating your drives, look at your memory, all those kind of things. So speak to the scan guys about how you could, if you've got a computer, it may be a good time to take advantage of just upgrading it and speccing it up a bit more because you're going to be making lots more music with this software.
And you're going to be buying, actually, something we haven't touched on yet. So we have in the browser window a new feature which we almost forgot, and it's under the Cloud tab. So where am I going here? Okay, so the top thing we have, okay, let's start with SoundCloud. Basically from within Studio One, you can load your final mixes or any content straight up to your SoundCloud account, which you sign into at the start page. So that's one element of the browser. The second element is Presonus Exchange. So this allows you to trade content with Presonus users all around the world. So they'll load up their settings or their presets or sound sets or whatever they want to share, and you can share stuff as well. So That's pretty cool, and it's pretty active. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, so it's an interesting way to collaborate kind of and create. But the main thing is Presonus Shop. So we have now 3 versions of Presonus, where we had 4 before. We have Studio One Prime, Studio One Artist, and Studio One Professional are the 3 versions. So with Studio One Artist, you can there's some elements as well, but within the Presonus Shop, you basically open up this tab and you can buy content directly online from the Presonus Shop. But the cool thing is, when you buy it and load it, you don't have to leave Studio One. So if you're working, you feel like you need something, you need samples, or you need a sound set or something, you can work away, buy it, pay for it, and it pops up straight away in your app. It's
and audition it before you buy it. You can
as well,
listen to it within Studio One before you even buy it.
So
very cool.
What's good now as well, if you buy...
It's like iTunes for Studio One, isn't it?
I know.
App
You could say that, yeah.
Yeah, shouldn't say that. That's a registered trademark of the Apple Corporation.
I'm not getting involved. But if you have Studio One Artist, it means you don't have to buy the full version. So you can buy a stripped down version, go into the Presonus Shop, and then pick certain elements that you need. So you don't have to spend the full, get the full professional thing. You might just need 1 or 2 elements that you can buy as add-ons.
Like the MP3 converter, for example.
Exactly. And they're all quite affordable as well. So
$7.88 including VAT.
Bargain. So.
Okay, I think one thing that you haven't quite covered is there's a slight change to the versions that are available this time. Yes,
okay, so I've had to kind of note some of these down. Basically, with Artist, you don't get the note effects. Some add-ons like third-party plugins, MP3s, you'll have to buy as an add-on. There's no project page in the Artist version either. Obviously, in the Prime version, you don't get these either.
There's only 2 versions this time, isn't there?
So no,
2 paid-for versions.
2 paid-for, but there's 1 Prime version, which gives you unlimited recording still, but you don't use third-party plugins, and there's no samplers, things like that.
Yeah.
You know what some people might not be aware of? It's a really cool feature with Presonus Studio One. If you download the demo of, let's say, any of the paid versions, after 30 days, if you don't buy it, it doesn't die. It just reverts back to being the Prime version.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
Cool.
Well, it's a great way to try it out, and you still get to try out some drag and drop features and the workflow with the Prime version for free. And I mean, you can record unlimited amounts on it as well. So, but yeah, 3 versions. Prime is free, Studio One Artist, and then Studio One Professional you get.
And check the store as well, because the upgrade prices, I've seen the prices.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quote them now because
there's lots of different.
But the price upgrades are really great. As I say, to get from 1 or 2 to version 3 is not a lot of money. It's basically a brand new program.
Exactly.
It's very cost effective.
Mm-hmm. So that's all in there. Presonus Shop. As you work, you can see what you need and just buy content as you need it. Sample packs. And even if you have the Pro version, there's going to be extra things that you can upgrade to.
Okay, I think we're going to sort of wrap up.
Okay.
Here. I'm going to hand the mic back over to Steve, who's going to have some final words. Stay where you are. We will just go to a little bumper, and we will be back.
So, thank you very much to Russ and Lee for that. Very informative and very cool indeed. As usual here at Scan, we have the ability to make a very special but secret offer. As many of you who follow our webcast will know, the way you do that is you feature the special word that has been used tonight by one of these 2 guys. It's a very secret word. Even they didn't know what it was. It was, in fact, bumper. So if you were, for example, to email that word to us at webinar@scan.co.uk, webinar@scan.co.uk, you may find that you get some preferential prices sent back to you. But he couldn't possibly comment about that. Again, thanks again. Presonus is a wonderful company. We deal with a lot of their products. Studio One is an incredible piece of kit, and I think you would agree that these two guys did a great job of showing you everything about it tonight. So from Russ and from Lee and from myself, thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.